Okay, let's talk a theatre now, and a new show called How to Bury a Dead Mule comes to the Lyric Theatre this September. Richard Clements is the guy behind it. He's written it, and he's also starring in the one-man show as well. Richard joins us in the studio. Richard, how are you?
Rob. Great, fantastic, lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us about the show, because this is the second time it's being performed, isn't it?
That's right. I did it at the Lyric Theatre in Belfast for 2 nights back in March, just to see what we had in its pilot phase, and it was a big success with audiences at the time. They really responded to the story, and so we're back for a full week at the Lyric again from the 6th to the 10th of September.
Excellent. Now, this is a story very close to your heart because it's the true life story of your granddad, isn't it?
That's right. It's been a real pet project for me. It started life in its infancy in the first lockdown, actually. I'm a musician as well, and I sat down at the piano when we all had a wee bit more time in our hands, and I wrote some music inspired by my grandfather's life story. His name was Norman Clements. He was a Royal Irish Fusilier, 1st Battalion, fought frontline campaigns in North Africa, Sicily and Italy. And we all grew up as grandchildren hearing some incredible stories of lucky escapes. The only reason I'm able to sit here now and talk to you is because of them. And I always wanted to find a way of bringing his story to life. In the first lockdown, I started writing the project, and because theatre doors were closed, I released it in audio format. It was about half the length that it currently is. But as a stage actor, primarily what I wanted to do was to stand in front of a live audience and share the story in that live environment. So I expanded the project, and it now looks not just at his time as a soldier, but also at what happened to him when he came home. He came back with severe PTSD, and so I look at how that impacted both him and the family around him.
And of course, we've learned a lot about PTSD really in the modern days, but I suppose when he came back from war, it wasn't really talked about, was it?
Well, he didn't mind. I mean, unlike the soldiers in the First World War who really refused to speak about anything, my grandfather almost had like a hyper focus. He really did want to focus in on what happened to him and try and find some justification for why he had been sent to war. But you're right, I mean, from a medical point of view, a clinical point of view, not enough was known about it. It wasn't really officially diagnosed as a thing until 1980 with the Vietnam War. But to be honest with you, I mean, in the course of my journey in writing this play, I've spoken to a lot of experts on the subject, and it's clear that nothing has really changed. The first mention of PTSD goes way back to 490 BC. Wow. And really there's no difference in terms of the symptoms, the way it affects families and the men themselves from all the way back then to the present day.
Wow, so what about your granddad then? It was North Africa he was based, wasn't it?
Yes, well he arrived in Algiers and he fought a number of campaigns there, battles there, before then heading to Sicily and Italy. And I mean, there's just so many stories that I could share with you. But he had a very, very difficult time, and he was severely injured in 1944, and at that point declared unfit for further service. He had a 7-year plan. He came back in 1946 to a Belfast that didn't really know how to cope with men in his condition. Yeah.
Was he a great storyteller?
Do you know, it's interesting, he loved writing little fragments of short stories and poems. I think he was trying to find a poetic voice for what had happened to him, but could never really articulate it properly.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that part of what I've been trying to do with this is to kind of find that voice for him, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah. And how does the rest of your family react to this then?
Well, this has been a real shared project for me and my mum. In that first lockdown, I spoke to her about the fact that I really wanted to do this. And she said that my grandfather passed away in 2011. And prior to that, he was in a care home in Bangor, which incidentally was on the site of the old Tonic Cinema.
Right, yeah.
And so I've set the play in the Tonic Cinema. I have this idea of him sort of conjuring up the ghosts of the past, and the old cinema comes to life, and he tells his story through that framework, you know. But anyway, going back to my mum, he would have gone round for lunch on a number of occasions, and she would say, you know, tell me the old stories, and she started recording them. And in that first lockdown, she had started to type up some of his words, so I was able to lean on those for for an authentic feel of the language of that time. And so then in those lockdowns, I would go down and see mum and dad and stand on the doorstep and talk to them and say, tell us another story about Granda. And so it became a real thing that my mum and I were able to share together during what was, well, for all of us, quite a difficult time.
Exactly, yeah. Tell us about the music in this as well, because you've got original music written by yourself too.
That's right. I suppose a sideline for me outside of acting and writing is that I love songwriting. It gives me a nice headspace when I'm hunting for the next acting job, and I've done it for a long, long time. And I also write, in addition to sort of my traditional singer-songwriter stuff, I would also write instrumental music for piano. And so I sat down at my upright piano at home, as I say, in that first lockdown, and just tried to come up with something that would be inspired by his life. And I wrote these very instrumental piano pieces. There were 5 of them, which now are incorporated within the soundscape of the show, plus additional stuff as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. So you open at the Lyric on the 6th of September. You've got Matthew McElhenney directing this as well.
That's right, fresh from his amazing success on Stones in His Pockets. Yeah. Matthew came on board for me as director last February, and the two of us were in a little rehearsal room in the Cathedral Quarter thinking, what on earth is this show? What have we got? And it's brilliant to be able to come back this time with a bigger and better show. I have some great sponsorship this time from a number of people. The NI War Memorial Museum, Clear Pharmacy, Doyle Shipping, and also NI Screen. And so the Northern Ireland Screen Digital Film Archive, which these guys have, is an archive of footage going back 100 years in the North that anyone can access. And so the big thing for us this time is that we have video design incorporated within the show, where we're actually able to project behind me on stage. And then iScreen gave me access to people at the Imperial War Museum in London. So we have actual footage from the war at the time that we're able to incorporate within the show to give this kind of all immersive experience for audiences coming in.
And of course, for anybody who saw Stones in His Pockets recently will know what Matthew did with the projection on that as well, which was absolutely amazing.
The video design on that show was incredible, yes. And we have support from the guys that were involved in that at the Barn Theatre in Cirencester. So this time around, we're back with a bigger, better, and even more creative experience for audiences.
Brilliant. We look forward to that. The 6th until the 10th of September at the Lyric. Richard, the best of luck with the show. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much indeed.